The man whose voice has defined an entire era has suddenly dropped an admission no one ever saw coming. At 64, this is the kind of confession that makes you sit up, widen your eyes, and rethink everything you thought you knew about him. In this narrative, we'll dive into his most personal confessions. Trust me, you'll want to stay for every word. Waylon Jennings' story begins in the wide-open, dusty plains of West Texas, a place where the horizon seems endless and the cotton fields stretch as far as the eye can see. Born on June 15, 1937, near Littlefield, Texas, his life wasn't one of glitz and glamour from the start. Waylon was the eldest child of William and Laureen Jennings. They named him Wayland, but his mother soon started calling him Waylon to avoid confusion with a nearby school, Wayland Baptist College. The Jennings family, deeply rooted in their faith, adhered to the Church of Christ, and like many Southern families, music was an integral part of their lives. Young Waylon grew up listening to the Grand Ole Opry on the radio and working alongside his family in the grueling cotton fields. His father, William, worked tirelessly in farm labor and truck driving, while his mother, Laureen, nurtured Waylon's love for music. By the age of 8, she taught him to play the guitar, sparking a lifelong passion. Soon, he was practicing relentlessly, playing borrowed guitars until his mother managed to buy him his own. Waylon's influences ranged from Bob Wills' Western swing to the honky-tonk sounds of Hank Williams and even the rock and roll vibes of Elvis Presley. By 14, he was performing at family gatherings and local events. He landed a weekly radio show on KV in Littlefield, gaining early experience that helped him refine his craft. At 16, Waylon dropped out of high school and moved to Lubbock, Texas, where he worked at a radio station. Fate intervened when Waylon met Buddy Holly at a local restaurant. Holly, a rising rock and roll star, became a mentor to Waylon, even producing his first single, Joel Blonde, in 1958. Their bond was more than professional. It was a deep friendship that shaped Waylon's future. In 1959, Waylon joined Buddy Holly's Winter Dance Party Tour as a bass player. The tour was grueling, with freezing buses and relentless schedules. To escape the cold, Holly chartered a plane for the next leg of the journey. Waylon gave up his seat to J.P. Richardson, who was battling the flu, in a twist of fate that would haunt him forever. Tragically, the plane crashed, killing Holly, Richardson, and Richie Valens. Waylon's parting words to Holly, "I hope your plane crashes," were meant as a joke but haunted him with guilt for years. The tragedy nearly caused Waylon to quit music, but he eventually channeled his grief into his art. He emerged in the 1970s as a pioneer of the outlaw country movement, rebelling against the restrictive Nashville sound. With creative control over his music, Waylon created raw, authentic tracks that redefined the genre. Waylon Jennings' journey from the dusty fields of West Texas to becoming an outlaw country legend is a testament to resilience, creativity, and the transformative power of music. His confessions at 64 reveal a man deeply shaped by his experiences, tragedies, and triumphs alike, leaving an indelible mark on the world of music. Rhinestone-studded suits that made him look like every other country star of the day. Instead, Jennings embraced a more rugged image, complete with long hair and leather jackets. His music was a bold fusion of Southern rock and country that didn't just tiptoe around the edge of rebellion. It jumped right in. Fans loved it. Critics loved it. Suddenly, this new outlaw style wasn't just an alternative to mainstream country, it was the future. One of the biggest highlights of Jennings' outlaw era was his collaboration with Willie Nelson, another country rebel who wasn't afraid to stir the pot. Their partnership was pure magic, resulting in hit after hit. Together, they became the dynamic duo of the outlaw country movement. Ever heard of the song Good-Hearted Woman? It's a classic, co-written by Jennings and Nelson in the mid-70s, and it became an anthem for anyone who felt like Nashville wasn't cutting it anymore. They didn't just dominate the charts, they won awards, including the Country Music Association's Duo of the Year award for the very same song. Their chemistry was undeniable, and it helped propel both of them into country music royalty. Then there was the Waylon and Willie album in 1978. The record had a certain rebellious swagger, and its standout single Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys was so infectious that it spent 4 weeks at the top of the country charts. It didn't stop there, though. They even snagged a Grammy for it. Can you believe it? Two country rebels who refused to play by the rules ended up with some of the biggest honors in music. If that's not poetic, what is? But we can't talk about Jennings without mentioning one of his biggest solo hits, Luckenbach, Texas, Back to the Basics of Love. Released in 1977, this song didn't just top the charts. It became a symbol of everything the outlaw country movement stood for. The lyrics tapped into a nostalgic yearning for simpler times, something that resonated with people then and still does today. Funny thing is, despite the song's success, Jennings didn't even perform in Luckenbach until July 4, 1997, 20 years after recording it. Throughout this entire outlaw phase, Jennings wasn't just pushing musical boundaries, he was tackling some pretty controversial topics too. His songs often touched on taboo subjects like substance use and fame and its dark underbelly. You know how some artists shy away from talking about their personal demons? Well, not Jennings. He took his struggles with substance misuse and turned them into art. Take I Can Get Off on You, for example, a song he did with Willie Nelson. It's about new love triumphing over old vices, and there's no doubt it echoed Jennings' own battles at the time. He didn't hide from his flaws, he embraced them. And that honesty is part of what made him so relatable to fans. At 64, when Jennings finally let the truth out, confirming what many of us had suspected for years, his candid admission was something his fans had been waiting to hear. It will leave you reflecting on the man behind the music. Stay with us till the end, because the full story behind Jennings' confession is even more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Jennings' personal life was as stormy as his legendary music career. The man was married, not once, not twice, but 4 times. Talk about a roller coaster. His first marriage came early, at just 18, when he tied the knot with Maxine Carol Lawrence. They had 4 children together, but managing a growing family while his music career was taking off wasn't easy. Imagine being on the road, living the wild life of a rising country star, and then trying to balance all of that with the responsibilities of home life. It just didn't work out. Add to that the growing shadow of substance abuse, and it's no surprise that marriage ended in divorce. Who could really juggle it all without something giving way? Then, in his mid-20s, Jennings gave marriage another shot. This time it was with Lynn Jones. While they didn't have kids together, he did adopt a child during their 5-year marriage. But just like the first time, his lifestyle, the constant pressures of fame, and the ongoing battle with his personal demons, mainly substances, led to another split. By now, it seemed like a pattern was forming. Can you imagine how tough it must have been for Lynn to deal with all the chaos that came with being married to a music icon? The long tours, the erratic behavior fueled by substance use, and the unpredictable lifestyle must have been a lot to handle. After Lynn, Jennings' third attempt at marriage came with Barbara Roode. That union, too, didn't last long, proving once again that while Jennings had no trouble charming the world with his music, his personal life wasn't quite as smooth. But just when it seemed like he was destined to drift from one marriage to the next, something unexpected happened. Enter Jessie Coulter, the love of his life, and as fate would have it, his 4th and final wife. Their relationship was different and stood the test of time in a way that his previous ones couldn't. Maybe it was because Jessie, being a singer herself, truly understood the demands of Jennings' career. Or maybe they were just right for each other in a way the others hadn't been. But despite all their ups and downs, they stayed together until the very end. 4th time's the charm, right? Now let's talk about Jennings' battle with substance use. It was no secret that Jennings' lifestyle was as wild as they come, especially in the 1970s and 1980s. This man was reportedly spending a mind-blowing $1,500 a day on coke. It got so bad that in August of 1977, he was arrested in a Nashville recording studio and charged with conspiracy and possession of this same hard substance with intent. Jennings' life took a pivotal turn when he met Jessie Coulter, the woman who would become his rock, his muse, and the love of his life. After 3 failed marriages, Jennings probably never imagined he'd find someone like her. The two met in Phoenix, Arizona, and the connection was instantaneous. There was something about Jessie, a talented singer-songwriter in her own right, that struck Jennings to his core. Maybe it was her spirit, her music, or just the fact that she saw him for who he truly was beneath the outlaw persona he had built up over the years. They tied the knot in 1969, starting a partnership that was much more than just a marriage. It was a journey that would last until Jennings' death in 2002. Now, Jennings often said that meeting Jessie was the best thing that ever happened to him. In a candid interview with Rolling Stone, he didn't shy away from admitting how low he had sunk before Jessie came into his life. "When I met Jessie, I was pretty well at my lowest point," he said. "I weighed 138 pounds, and I was bent on self-destruction, wallowing in self-pity. The biggest part of it was staying depressed all the time and stoned." She stayed by his side, and according to Jennings, "Jessie was the best thing that ever happened to me." And doesn't that just say it all? But Jessie's influence didn't stop at simply being there for him. She had a profound impact on his career too. In fact, it wasn't long before her talents as a singer-songwriter began to shine, and Jennings helped her secure a record deal with RCA. The two were not only partners in life, but also collaborators in music. How often do you see that in the music industry? Two people who can thrive personally and professionally together. They even recorded the hit duet Suspicious Minds, which earned them a Grammy nomination in 1970. The success of their music together solidified them as a true power couple in the outlaw country scene. While Jennings was making waves in the genre, Jessie was right there with him, contributing her own unique voice to the movement. They were a force to be reckoned with. And let's talk about Jessie's role in helping Jennings through his most challenging times, his battle with addiction. When Jennings finally made the decision to quit the use of hard substances in 1984, it was Jessie who stood by him through the tough, often ugly process. This wasn't just your everyday kind of support. This was deep, unwavering love. They rented a house in the Arizona desert, canceled their gigs, and focused entirely on getting Jennings through the withdrawal and the healing. Jennings later said that it was Jessie's prayers and her presence that made all the difference in his recovery. It wasn't just about love. It was about faith and endurance. Their life wasn't just about their careers or Jennings' battles. In 1979, they welcomed their son, Shooter Jennings, into the world. Raising Shooter gave Jennings an additional reason to keep fighting his demons. For Jessie, their son became another beacon of light in their often tumultuous life together. After keeping this secret for years, Jennings finally spoke the truth at 64, and it's something we all suspected but never thought he'd admit. What was the country star hiding, and how does it change the way we understand his legacy? You'll want to hear the full story behind this revealing moment. Stay tuned till the very end, because Jennings' admission will leave you with more questions than answers than you ever expected. Reflections at 64 with a shocking confession in a candid and revealing interview. Jennings, the legendary outlaw country singer, bared his soul about his troubled past and the heavy burden of his mistakes. At 64, Jennings finally seemed to have made peace with the guilt that had followed him like a shadow for decades. The most profound part of his confession came when he opened up about the tragic plane crash that claimed the life of his dear friend and mentor, Buddy Holly. With a deep sigh, Jennings admitted, "God Almighty, for years I thought I caused it." Those words shed light on the emotional storm he had been weathering all these years, revealing the tremendous guilt he had felt for something that, in truth, was beyond his control. Yet, it haunted him. How does one come to terms with feeling responsible for the loss of a friend in such a tragic way? For Jennings, it was a long journey to acceptance. But the crash wasn't the only demon Jennings battled. He also had to confront his struggle with substance abuse, particularly his addiction to substances in the prime of his career. The singer's substance misuse habit spiraled out of control. At one point, Jennings admitted to spending as much as $1,500 a day on hard substances. Think about that, $1,500 a day. The addiction didn't just drain his bank account, it drained his spirit. The financial ruin that came with it was immense, with Jennings accumulating debts of up to $2.5 million. It's hard to even imagine climbing out of that kind of hole, but in 1984, Jennings did just that, thanks to the unwavering support of his wife, Jessie Coulter, and his son, Shooter Jennings. He finally kicked the habit and said goodbye to hard substances. And though it was a victory, it came after years of chaos and loss. As Jennings looked back on his life, it became clear that he carried deep regret for the years lost to addiction. How could he not? The toll on his health was staggering. The same man who once ruled the stage with his booming voice and larger-than-life presence was now grappling with the consequences of his past choices. Type 2 diabetes hit hard, slowly chipping away at his health and mobility. The heartbreaking climax came in 2001 when Jennings' left foot had to be amputated due to complications from the disease. Yet, through all this, Jennings found wisdom. There's something about looking back that forces people to see things in a clearer light, and Jennings was no exception. One of the most important lessons he shared in his interviews was simple yet profound. The hardest thing is saying the word no, turning things down. Didn't that ring true for all of us? Whether in our personal lives or careers, learning to say no can be one of the toughest yet most empowering things. Jennings knew this better than most. For years, he had said yes to temptation, yes to the pressures of fame, and yes to the vices that came with it. But later in life, he finally understood the value of setting boundaries and making choices that protected both his heart and his health. And if there's one thing Jennings believed in, it was authenticity. He encouraged artists to focus on meaningful content instead of chasing trends. After all, wasn't that what made him a legend in the first place? Even when record sales slowed down in the 90s, he still drew massive crowds to his live performances. Why? Because his fans knew he was the real deal. He didn't sell out. He didn't bend to what was popular at the moment. Instead, he stuck to his weapons, pouring his soul into every song and performance. Jennings' career was a testament to the fact that true artistry isn't about the number of albums sold. It's about creating something that resonates, something that lasts. And speaking of lasting, Jennings left one final gift for his fans before he passed. His last album, Never Say Die, live, recorded at Nashville's Ryman Auditorium in January 2000. It was his way of saying that despite the trials, despite the mistakes, and despite the pain, his love for music never wavered. The album was a message to all who listened, a reminder to persevere and stay true to your vision, no matter the obstacles. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.